Learning now is so different from probably what we remember when we were going through training. People are learning in snackable, bite-sized ways very, very rapidly.
Welcome to Rhythm Interventions Unplugged, your monthly deep dive into the world of electrophysiology. Join us as we explore the latest research, share clinical insights, and provide practical tips to keep you at the forefront of your field. Now here's your host, the Director of Cardiac Electrophysiology at St. Bernard's Medical Center, Dr. Devi Nair.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Devi Nair. I'm a cardiac electrophysiologist from Jonesboro, Arkansas. Welcome to our podcast. Today, I'm joined by two very esteemed electrophysiologists and two of my really good friends, Dr. Nassir Marrouche, the head of the Cardiovascular Institute and chief of electrophysiology at Tulane University, and Dr. Janet Han, associate professor at UCLA, who also runs the cardiac device program at the VA. Dr. Marrouche, Dr. Han, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks, Devi. It's good to be here.
Thank you, Devi. Always good to see you, by the way.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Marrouche, I'll start with you. Can you share a bit about your background and your role at Tulane, especially surrounding the electrophysiology fellowship program? Today's podcast, we want to discuss a little bit about the electrophysiology training for our fellows in this era that we call the digital age. So if you can give me just a little bit background of your role at Tulane.
I joined Tulane 5 years ago, and we started practically the EP fellowship program here. And as you know, as the three of us involved in academic medicine, our mission is to further education and build the next generation of EP fellows and get them suited for the real world, which is, as you know, specifically since the pandemic, has been occupied by digital tools, from the ECG we read, to the follow-up of the patient we do, to the clinic visits we do, to the EP lab. All those now are covered by digital tools from A to Z. And as everybody else in the world, and we here built early on with the pandemic, the digital infrastructure in our EP fellowship program to be suited for this part of the future, which is now it's a present. Back then was the future, now it's a present. Digital invasion of our EP, not only training, but clinical structure and research as well, by the way. So that's an introduction from my perspective.
Okay. Well, that's a very innovative way of thinking. You've always been, very far ahead of many of us when it came to that. So your fellows should be very thankful for what you do. Now, Janet, let me jump in and ask you. You are also involved in the training of cardiology fellows, so you see them very early on. What do you see as the biggest shift in how fellows are trained today when we just started looking at them starting cardiology? And how has this digital learning and virtual training really impacted the education of our fellows?
That is a great question, Debbie. I am actually the associate program director for the cardiology fellowship, the general cardiology fellowship at UCLA, one of them. It's a big multi-campus program. So there's 4 or 5 of us that sort of are the associate program directors. And I think that's the key, right? Is that learning now is so different from probably what we remember when we were going through training. I remember the days of sitting in the conference room and getting stacks of our guidelines, and we would page through the guidelines and highlight them, and everybody would talk about a section and really sit and dive in like that. I think what I've seen is that we've learned now with the sort of invasion, as Nassir said, of the digital age. People are learning in snackable, bite-sized ways very, very rapidly at the point of contact with patients even at sometimes. So I think that's part of how we sort of need to shift How we teach our fellows too is that no longer are we carrying our big Washington manuals in our pockets and, reading in the elevator by paging through. We can sit actually even at the bedside, and if we find something that we don't understand, quickly, very rapidly look it up because we're always connected 100% of the time. So really, we need to shift towards understanding, changing digital strategy of education into not only long form, which is still needed, but really bite-sized, snackable content that people can digest rapidly.
By the way, she's humble to talk about herself, but Janet was early on in this and change. And I have to say, and through our society, HRS, she has been the driving force behind the digital implementation into our EP programs and our EP life, I have to say, beyond programs. So Janet, kudos and thank you for everything you're doing for our society in that field. But going back to, there's a point which Janet touched on into how to target our fellows. I have to say, living with the Carto times, when Carto came, the first version, in the 98, 97, we started using it. And in the 99, San Francisco, and we had there as fellows, was like heaven. And then fellows have to come in and go through the Carto system. And that's, for us, was wow, 3D and digital and whatever you want to call it. The fellows of today, we were unprepared. We were prepared for the ECG strip, the 12-lead ECG, that's all we saw. And based on that, we did our AP procedures back then, right? But the fellows of today, I have to say, they're more prepared for us now, what Janet has been talking about. Yes, we have to present it to them and teach them and educate them, but I feel, and I'm not sure both of you agree with me on that, but they feel our current fellows, they have the phone with them. They have the digital era with them already in their minds. They're coming ready, different than the fellows of the 2019 and you know what I'm saying? It's and that helps a lot. So they expect us as well to feed them and teach them that digital. They want to see the digital era, the AI and the cath lab and the telemedicine, and then how to read in a smartphone ECG, and that's becoming more and more part of their. They expect to see that in their training, rather than just a 12-lead ECG and look at the morphology of the P waves and make a consensus. They want to see the AI that does that for them, and they expect us to show them. They want to help them develop them if it doesn't exist yet. So that's today's fellows as well.
Yeah, well, Nassir, I agree. I mean, I think, fellowship has changed so much since I've come out of fellowship, and it's been 15 years. We talk about EP. EP has advanced so much. This is like the era of, like, if you look at this last 2 years, there's so many new technologies that have come up. And with this advancing EP technology, that's a lot of AI driven, say, for example, mapping, robotics, all kinds of things coming into play. How are you ensuring that the fellows get proper hands-on experience? Not every program has access to all these technologies. And how do we get our fellows to get good hands-on experience? Like, what do you think is the role for, like, peer-to-peer sessions and collaboration between centers in refining the training experience?
I gotta say, I'm gonna jump in on this one because, again, speaking as a multi-campus program, that I gotta say, we at the beginning of COVID, we're not so familiar with Zoom, and here I am. I'm talking to you in Arkansas and you as well in Louisiana, right? Like, it's so facilitated these days. And now, after COVID, we've learned that we can get speakers from across the world to come and teach us, right? That's one thing, right into our living rooms and our homes. I think that I feel like how do we your question really was, how do we make sure that we don't sort of maybe lose sight? Is that kind of how you feel too? Is how do we not lose sight of how do we teach our fellows? Should we do face-to-face? We still do, for our EP fellows, we still do role review, believe it or not. So we still get into the room and do role review in the room. We also but broadcast it also to other campuses, and we do that with all of our general cardiology fellowship content as well for education. So I think there's for sure the camaraderie has to be there with face-to-face content and face-to-face meetups that you do learn from each other because that's how, conversations are stimulated. But I think the fact that you can get speakers and broadcast to other institutions and receive content from other institutions is just outstanding. That's one thing that I really love that we learned from COVID.
I Debbie, going back to actually following on Janet's input as well, going back to multiple, we are getting another invasion of technology. Not only digital tools on the watches and others, but in the EP lab. Almost every other week we have a new kind of now as you know, the whole mapping concept in AI and it is becoming is getting more and more new roles and the fellows, if the fellows in a program and like our program, for example, or other programs that uses our program uses multiple we have an Abbott system. We made an effort to keep every system Abbott, Biosense, Boston Scientific, all the tools available. We strive to put this institution in front of the fellows. Although we may not use them, but we need the fellows to be educated in this. And that's becoming challenges because of the partners in industry who invent these tools, they want you to pay for them and use them, and hospitals are not affording this anymore. That's why what Janet just mentioned, something we, through the society and through educational programs like the one you're building now, we should educate our fellows about those as well, let them make their own opinion on the future. I mean, I use this Boston Scientific and Biosense, for example, and others uses my partner as well, Lucky uses Abbott and others. So we have a mix of, we have multiple hospital systems, like just like Janet's at UCLA, and we have multiple labs and 6 labs on different technologies. But that's something we have to worry about. I agree with you, is if a fellow graduates from a program uses Abbott and goes to a program uses Biosense and they just bought a new mapping system from one of these, AI mapping companies and they can't use it, or use a PFA catheter A and then they will train a mapping catheter B with this different digital concepts. So I think the beauty there that, as Janet mentioned, we have this, Zoom, tele, educational programs as is more available to us to educate our fellows and implement them in our teaching programs as well at universities. We ourselves here, we make an effort to have every system available so the fellows get exposed. If not, we tell them go to Western AFib, you've seen it all.
There you go. And I think that's, coming and attending conferences is, I remember that's how I learned, but the amount of, educational opportunities that are available online, for example, like I'm going to put a plug for Rhythm Interventions Online Congress that we just had. It was a 4-day, completely virtual, free to, the audience, showing all kinds of new technology with operators showing live in, moderated cases. I mean, that's a great opportunity to see what's out there. And then you make up your own mind. You talk to your own mentors in and around. And I think that's important, I think, for fellows as they challenge towards, as they transition to practice, as they go out and become, fly out of the nest. And I think, Janet, let me ask you a question about what would you advise fellows as they transition over to practice? How do you feel like mentors like Nassir and you and everyone around there can help them transition and bridge that gap between training and real world practice? What advice would you give our fellows as they navigate those paths?
Yeah, I think that's really nice to say about mentorship, because I feel like mentors never go away. I think that's probably the key, is that I feel like I still have fellows emailing me, calling me, texting me from years ago. I just had, an EP fellow from, I want to say 5 years ago, just text me, hey, what was that, pattern break, napkin drawing that I saw a few years ago, right? He literally just texted me just that a few days ago. So mentors never go away. Mentors, you can always call on it, and at any time, day or night, especially good mentors, right? They will never shy away. I think the other thing that I might say, though, is, I don't want to turn into super philosophical here, and I'm not as good as Abraham Verghese by any means. But I would also say don't lose touch of the sort of human aspect of the EP and medicine, right? Like, I know we're all sort of attached to our phones, and and our devices all day long, and it gives us lots of information, and all the catheters and mapping systems and everything are amazing. But, remember what EP is about. Remember that it's about, taking care of your patients and making them feel better and live longer, hopefully. And that these tools that we have, these digital tools that we have, really are sort of helpful things to help us in that endeavor, right? So I think those are probably two big things to sort of remember. And also remember data, right? Like, AI is great, and I'm pro AI, and we all are pro AI in this conversation here. But again, put your doctor hat on every now and then, right? To use your own brains. It's not a video game that you're painting dots, on a 3D, shell. Remember your EGMs. Remember what your mentors and teachers have taught you to take care of your patients.
Yeah. Nicely said. That's very nicely said. As we wind down this podcast, Dr. Marrouche, I wanna just look ahead, and I want you, as my mentor and Janet's mentor, what would you say as what the EP training is going to evolve in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? Like, what key takeaway would you like to give fellows and institutions aiming to optimize their EP education in this digital age?
I like this question because you can say whatever you want to say, right? It's not like a reference number, the future, and that's big, and space and everything else. EP and the three of us are involved in a field that is continue on a daily basis, changing rapidly. And technology and the indication. I mean, when we started doing our fellowship, we were doing an ablation ablation was a big deal at San Francisco UCSF and Mount Shannon. We have 6 fellows sit in one AVNRT for 6 hours and understand. Once a week we have a case, that's it, and the rest was ECG and giving flecainide and amio. So now the field changed within a short period of time. 20 years is not that long in medicine to having AFib going on, now VT. And the way I see it for education, EP education, first of all, I'm glad all of us now agreed to shorten the cardiology fellowship, which is Janet was part of that as well, and make it more useful for EPs to not take the 3rd year and make 2 and 2. So we're getting these people out there in the field sooner. Having said that, I believe the education of EP, with the tools we're using it for treatment now. They're going to be used for education. And I believe this will help us shortening the fellowships even further out. So people get trained, because getting more help. But there's all things we do, if you look at our fellowships and the training of our fellows, have to do with using tools. These pieces of the tools, you use them by putting catheter in the heart, going to transcept, all this stuff, that will be more navigated through algorithms, and software will help us cut the time. Ultimately, when we get the real treatment that we spend, like when Janet goes to ablate her AFib and her flutter, if you look at her time when she starts delivering energy until she ends, it's really 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. But that will be the future of EP. It's more concrete. Everything else will be done by other. This is why I call them the low-hanging fruits for AI and algorithms, save us the unnecessary time. Reading an ECG. Now she doesn't trust it as much to treat the fellows. But as we go, the fellows we train to trust the AI more and more after we tested this a million times in years to come. And like anywhere else in our life, we're going to start using is AI tools. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to use this AI word here at Triad. The research team uses algorithms that we're developing in the future. The fellows are going to be part of this. So every fellow will come in developing their own concept of the platform, the workflows, and they're going to train themselves and train the algorithms, their EP lab, the software. If you look at the new mapping system that I'm looking at today, all of us probably in our labs, you can personalize them for your treatment options. You can adjust them how you want to deliver energy. You have an algorithm you're working on here. You just call labs at Marrouche's algorithm, and he gives you the data point where you ablate, right? So Janet has the algorithm. The fellows will have their own, and that's what's going to be more and more and more. And the ultimate goal is to make it as safe and efficient for the patient, and the fellow will train that. Because as Janet said, you can't forget what it's about. It's not about technology. So our job as educators for next years to come is to get this pushing more and more, as what Janet said, the human aspect of of our, yes, technology is developing and it's faster, but be careful, there's a patient in the center of this. Whatever, is it good for the patient? And teach our fellows to do so. But I believe education will be shorter, procedure more efficient, and fellows will be more personalized approaches used on these tools we have today. It's no doubt coming and faster than expected.
Well, I can't end this podcast on a better note. Thank you, Dr. Marrouche, and thank you, Dr. Hahn, for sharing these insights. I truly believe that the future of our electrophysiology fellows is bright. And thank you again for joining us today. For our listeners, stay tuned for our next episode, and please let us know your thoughts and questions on today's discussion. Thank you very much.
That's all for this episode of Rhythm Interventions Unplugged. Never miss a beat. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and please share your thoughts with a review. We'll be back next month with another episode. Until then, keep the rhythm going.